Okay, we have a quorum. We'll call the first meeting of the month of June to order for the Town Board of Liberty Grove. The board has just come back from feeding the mosquitoes at the gravel pit. We toured the pit, toured the building down there to familiarize the board with pieces of equipment that the town owns and also, obviously, the land that the town owns. It's about 40 acres. What did you say we had in yardage, in gravel right now?
There's about, probably about 8,000 yards there right now. Oh, no, wait a minute, probably 6,000 yards.
And usually we crush gravel.
Every other year, if we're doing our normal road paving, 10,000 of half-inch stone and 1,000 or so of breaker run.
Okay, welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have cell phones, if you wouldn't mind turning them on vibrate or off, it would be appreciated. And a reminder to the board to speak into the microphones. And would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A couple other quick things before we go to approve the agenda. The new town website is up. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at it. Janet informed me that the first point in pay was registered today on it, I believe. A couple days ago. You can pay for cemetery plots if you wish, dog licenses, and a number of other items that the town charges for, with the exception of property tax.
No property tax on our website.
Another thing, she's working on a business directory, which will be on the website, and it's free of charge to businesses in the town to list their business. And I believe they can put a photo on, or, yeah, okay. And then, I don't know if, how many people get the Journal Sentinel on the weekends. The Savory Spoon was one of the featured articles in the food section. The Journal Sentinel looked at cooking schools throughout the state of Wisconsin, and Savory Spoon was mentioned. So, and we have a copy here if anybody'd like to, take a look at it. Okay, that being said, we need to approve the agenda, and what I would like to do is to hold number 8 and approve that after our discussion of number 7. And also, if it's would be possible to kind of blend number 11C with 12D. They kind of coincide with each other a little bit, so. Anybody else?
Could you explain to me again, John, why you want to mess with 7 and 8? What's the,
Well, we're going to consider modification of public input. So at this point in time, I'm suggesting, depending on what our decision is on public input, to hold off right now as listing that as a agenda item as we approve. Okay? Well, then I move to approve the agenda as altered.
I'll second that.
Second by Gaz, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Nay over there. Okay, we have the minutes of 5:21.
Is it 5-0 on the agenda approval?
Pardon?
5-0 on the approval?
No, he was no. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes, please?
I move we adopt the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mulligan, seconded by Forkert. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Bills. You have a short sheet of bills, am I correct?
Very few.
Very few.
I move we pay the bills as listed.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mulligan, seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, I have number 7 on the agenda because I've been asked by numerous people for us to take a look at public input. And suggestions have been made from the point of totally eliminating it, to keeping it as it is, to making some modifications to allow just the people that are on a particular agendized item, and so it's been all over the place. The reason this is here is I think what has happened, and we have, you all should have a copy of the rules of organization that how we conduct the meetings. Janet, have you got those? Yeah, to put up on the board? And it's pretty specific, and if you remember a couple of years ago, we modified this particular ordinance, and it was ordinance 512 that we did that, to allow more latitude and at the board's discretion to allow somebody to speak longer than the 3-minute period, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to, again, underline the fact that public input is a, if you will, privilege, not a right, and that's pretty much stated in the state statutes. It gives the public an opportunity to address the board on any item they'd like. It also gives the board, the audience, the opportunity to speak on agendized items. I think what has happened is, in a number of instances, it has now been used to promote a platform, somebody's agenda. And we have heard, on numerous occasions, the same comments made, and I'm just wondering how the board feels about this. I'm not saying that I suggest that we get rid of public input, but I'm wondering if we need to do a little modification with it. So I'll seek any input you people have.
This is timely. I was at the civility training with Mr. Rizzo as guest speaker this past Saturday, and he addressed public input. And I was surprised at what he said about public input, and it seems like the timing on this was fortuitous. His comments centered around what you said, that public input is not a right, it is a privilege. And one of the things he said is that a 3-minute limit is very standard throughout municipalities across the state. And he said sometimes that creates frustration with the public because 3 minutes isn't enough for them to say what they want to say. However, he strongly believed that public input was not the forum for a constituent to try to influence the board. He said that is best done outside of the official meeting via telephone conversation or face-to-face appointment with board member or members or in a letter. And he did suggest that if public input is allowed on a specific agendized item, that you remain on topic, and suggested that it also be kept to the 3-minute forum. He did reference that in every single municipality, there are some small groups that have the opportunity to come to every meeting, where in many, many cases, people are busy with families, with second jobs, and they just simply don't come. And very often, the people that come repeatedly, and he said, his exact words were, it's usually a small group, 5 or 6 people, they wind up believing that they speak for the constituency, and that's simply not the case. There is a majority of people out there. We do talk to them. Sometimes we are rather contemptuously referred to as listening to the silent majority. Believe me, they do exist. I got phone calls from a couple of them just this past week. So I guess I would have to say I would like to see public input changed, more towards what Mr. Rizzo was talking about and suggesting. And I do believe that at times, in recent years, our public input at the beginning of the meeting has been used as a soapbox for people to promote their own issues and then repeatedly say, "We are the people, we are speaking," or to attack the board. I don't believe that that is what it was intended to be.
Anybody else?
Well, I have a question for Nancy. How did he intend it to be, Nancy? You said you'd like to have it like you.
Yes, he intended it to be, as in most cases across the state, a 3-minute input by the public, meet, greet, and address an item either on the agenda or request to address an item on the agenda, if that's something that's allowed, and to request something else perhaps to be on the agenda, but not to use it to promote an issue. That's something that he strongly said should be done outside of the meeting context.
Okay, anybody, Frank?
I think anybody who missed the meeting on Saturday and hearing what Mr. Rizzo said, as an expert in this field of meetings and so on, missed a real opportunity. He's probably the best. I think there's some in the audience that were there, and I think they would agree that it was an excellent, excellent session. I agree that we should have public input on any topic. I think this board, in the last 5 years and a couple of months, has been far more open to being generous and allowing more than 3 minutes because we wanted to have a dialogue from the public to the board during that public input period. And I definitely want to see it retained. I think it's very important. But I think the 3-minute rule, and I believe our existing ordinance or whatever we have that sets that forth, states that.
Yeah.
So I don't see any need to change what we're doing now. And I think and I believe that also states that the chairman can extend that 3-minute period. But if you're gonna go beyond 3 minutes, you say to the chairman either before you start or at the end of that 3 minutes, I have just another topic to bring up. I think this is just plain politeness. And I think we're all polite people, and if we act that way in our meetings, everything will be fine.
Okay, anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I don't think I would want to move at this point in time with such contention, it seems, between the board, or the town, I should say, and segments of the citizens to make an issue out of it this time. But
Something's not on, Lou.
Is it not?
Yeah, it is.
Pull that cord back up once.
There you go.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
There you go.
that's the spooky one.
And, but at the same time, though, I think one of the things that I realize is, let's call it out of order, would be where the person who's giving the public input sort of demands an answer to a question or concern that they have from the board. And the thing that I realize that public input should not be is a dialogue between the board and the public. And that, where you draw the line there without stifling comment on the one hand, but restraining from responding on the other hand. And the reason I suggest that is one of the concerns I have about public input is that the lack of response from the board, which is required not to respond, it's not a dialogue, that the lack of response from the board is taken as a sign of arrogance or an inability to want to answer and stonewall an issue. And that restraint on the part of the board to be interpreted that way only antagonizes, I think, the hard feelings or the lack of transparency that's been suggested occurs and things like that. So in many ways, I think perhaps it's sort of a blend of what, from what Nancy and Frank said, Mr. Rizzo said on the one hand, and what we've allowed on the other hand, which is sort of definitely a limit on I need to know an answer, why is this the case, or what happened here? And then sort of just a general statement from the board, if there is general public comment, other than on agenda items, that a lack of response is not in any way, shape, or form a sign of either arrogance or stonewalling or whatever else it might be.
Hugh, you want to make a comment?
If I may, please, John, thank you. I kind of look at the town of Liberty Grove as a small entity, and I think it's more of a family than a kind of a big community. And I think to have an open dialogue with people about different issues is extremely important. And one thing I found lacking was that people asked to speak on an issue, let me talk on 11A, and so 11A comes up, and the people come up here and talk about it. And then the board has this dialogue, but there's no opportunity for rebuttal or anything if there's in fact a feeling for that. And I think that, like at the Resource Planning Committee at the county level, if you speak in the first round in favor or in opposition to an issue, you have an opportunity after the other testimony's been given to speak in rebuttal. And I think that we're not that big of a thing that we have to follow some real strict rules and limit public input. To me, I would certainly limit it to 3 minutes, but I think people should have an opportunity to come forth and speak in rebuttal sometimes.
Does the county board allow public input?
The county board is different than the RPC. During the county board, anybody who wants to can talk in the very beginning about any subject they want to. And if you ask your supervisor from your district during that particular agenda item, you can also speak. But it has to be prearranged.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, yes.
Another thing that Mr. Rizzo stressed was that a dialogue is absolutely not proper in a meeting. It runs afoul of the open meeting laws. You can't, it's the board. It's a meeting of the Board of Supervisors doing the business of the town. What he did suggest was similar to what we did a couple of years ago when we had listening sessions. And I directly asked him, but how do you dialogue then in a listening session without getting afoul of the law? Because nobody knows what questions are going to come up, and so all we can do is listen. And he came up with an answer that I found fascinating, and maybe we should look at it. He said, if you bring just 2 board members, different board members, at each mini session, you can then discuss it because you do not have a quorum of the board. And that to me sounded like it might be a viable idea to have this out of the board meeting context to be able to dialogue with people who are interested with whatever issue they want to bring up.
I would have a suggestion, and I think it came out of that particular meeting on Saturday, that an agendized item comes before the board, we discuss it, allow the public who is registered to have their input, it comes back, that's it. And no dialogue after that point in time. But that'll give the people in the audience an opportunity to know what our thinking is prior to making a decision, and they can comment on that, so.
That would certainly be a good compromise.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I thought too, so. Okay, any other comments, questions?
So let me ask you, so in your suggestion, John, a person would still have to say, I want to speak on 11B or
Yes,
something?
I mean, we would follow that same procedure, sure.
But then the board discusses it first, and then after this discussion, then the
Yeah.
public would have an opportunity.
Opportunity, and then it comes back for decision.
Yeah, well, that'd be
Correct.
certainly a good compromise.
Yeah, okay. All right, with that being said, then I would like to approve number 8 on the agenda. And let's go ahead. Anybody has a general comment, if they wouldn't mind stepping to the podium, making the general comment. After that, we'll take people who wish to speak on a particular item. Let's start in the first row. Susan. Yes, please.
Okay. Regardless of the civility pledge taken by the board, there's been a rash of name-calling from both board members and committee heads. A few weeks ago, Lou wrote a letter to the editor calling those of us who ask questions or question your answers witch hunters. Lou, we will continue to ask questions as it is our right. You've commented that you will not have email conversations. My husband emailed you, you did not get back to him. Calling us names will not deter us from being good citizens. Today, I became aware of some other name-calling and some pretty nasty emails from Mike Walker. This was due to me asking for some traffic counter information from Janet. You all saw the emails except for Hugh, who, lucky for him, is not included in your extensive grapevine. Mike Walker, who, by the way, always goes over 3 minutes, called the moronics more than once in the email, and Tom Goss called me the red-haired growler, which I really don't mind that much, Tom. It's not that bad. With both him and Nancy questioning the list of addressees whether my question possibly constituted harassment. My questions were all on the emails you received, so you can decide for yourselves. Now, the reason for my questions about the road counter, we recently heard some comments on the number of cars that would require wider roads, and then I realized why it was important to have a traffic counter. So I just was interested when I heard that the Isleview road test was conducted over Memorial Day weekend from the information that Janet had given me. I called the DOT and I got the emails that went back and forth from the town to the DOT about the traffic study. Jeanette Kavanaugh, who was the one that you dealt with on these emails, and these did not come from the town, these came from the DOT, says, "Good morning, John. I'm looking for verification regarding the town's wishes for the special request count on Isleview Road. We were scheduled to count for 5 days over Memorial Day weekend per Walt's request. I spoke to Nancy yesterday, and she asked if we could change when we count, and I said we can. I have not heard back and wanted to get an official request from you when you'd like the count taken. For our coverage count program, we count tourist areas in Wisconsin in May and November. We avoid the remaining summer and fall months because this would greatly skew the counts needed to get an average annual daily traffic count. We also set out tubes for 48 hours. I recommend counting on May 21st and 22nd. This is consistent with how we conduct our coverage count program. However, the count on Isleview Road is a special request count and not part of our coverage count program. Please consider what you hope to capture with this special request count and provide us clear direction on what the town's wishes are." Then John called back or emailed back the next day. "Good morning, Jeanette. Our board met last evening. We discussed the requested traffic count on Isleview Road. The road's been scheduled for resurfacing, and during the course of planning the project, it became clear many trees had to be removed that were adjacent to the road. This became a point of contention between adjacent property owners and the town. The board would like to get a very firm handle on the traffic on that road as we reach a decision on the project. We'd like to proceed with the counting as requested and scheduled this month, and we'll consider another special request for June or perhaps July. We appreciate the cooperation of the DOT in this matter. Since the May count is scheduled for both weekdays and weekend, we would request the data be broken down into 2 separate reports, weekdays and weekend." Out of your board minutes then.
We're coming up to 3 minutes.
Okay. Supervisor Goss has talked to DOT personnel about traffic counts on Isleview. They only do counts in May and November. But they called a guy named Mr. Williamson in Madison. He said that Memorial Day weekend would give a fair sampling. I called Mr. Williamson about this. He said that it's a fair sampling because your request was, when would you get the highest numbers on that road? That was your request. He has it down in writing. He doesn't have an email, but it is down very carefully in writing from the DOT. So you guys looked for the highest number you could get, and they did not call that a traffic count, an accurate traffic count. That's what you requested, was to do it on a Memorial Day weekend. They never do that.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
Nancy Kurtz, 12025 Cedar Shore Road. I just wanted to thank the board for the Women's Club records that you donated to the Liberty Grove Historical Society last fall. I wanted you to know that they are now on display in the Log Museum, and also the file cabinet is in use, so thank you again for that. The museum will open on Saturday, June 14th, and we're going to have a meeting at 10 o'clock in the museum to organize a parade participation on the part of our organization. So we invite the public to attend that meeting and to kind of help plan. We're thinking of doing a dress-up for decades, each decade. So anyway, again, thank you so much for helping us with this, and please come see the exhibit when you can.
Thank you. Anybody else? Carol?
Excuse me, Carol Moronic. I agree with Nancy on the wonderful, and Frank, the wonderful opportunity that some of us had on Saturday at the Civility Project seminar, which was, turned out to be something totally different than I expected, because I've been to several of their general presentations, and this one went far beyond, and thanks to Shirley Senerigi, who organized this very carefully and very caringly, because she is aware of some of the problems that have been happening in Liberty Grove. It turned out to be an amazingly informational and satisfying meeting. There were 3 speakers, and Rob Burke, Community Development Educator at UW Extension, Bill Rizzo, the local government specialist from UW Extension, and Joe Majeski, candidate for First Assemblyman, a resident of Bailey's Harbor. Each one of them discussed the subject of civility in government, and specifically an approach to civic involvement and or engagement. And a lot of the discussion was based on not just public input, but that was part of it, but how important it is to engage the public in decision-making. And I do have to disagree related to the one question, which was a response to a question I asked, and that is related to what John brought up, and several of you have already discussed, and that is the 3-minute limitation at the beginning of a meeting is restrictive in that if you aren't allowed to have the opportunity to clarify or question, or in some cases correct incorrect information that has come up in a discussion, and you're sitting in the audience saying, what do? I know that somebody just said something that needs to be addressed, and you can't do it. It's very frustrating, and as they pointed out, it makes the public very, very angry and irritated to not be able to have the ability to speak again. And they did suggest, in answer to my question and others, that this 3-minute only before the board's discussion is not written in stone. That a very good way to deal with this would be to, as you just talked about, to allow people who have spoken already to have another opportunity to speak afterwards if there's something important that they need to address. So I do hope that you will seriously consider including that, because I believe it is a very important, it would help an awful lot. And by the way, these 3 both said they would come back and continue to discuss this anytime we want them back, and I have their cards, and you do too. I think we should invite them, and I wish that all of you would be there, and many more residents as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I'm Claudia Alt, 12394 Northern Door Road, and I'm so happy to be home. I just had a couple of questions, and based upon, John, what you have just said to us, that you can't respond to questions, I would pose those and hope that one of you would get back to me with answers to these. I'm interested in what citation and fine was made for the incident on Isleview Road going into the slough. I would like to know why and if it was reported to the Sheriff's Department as an accident. I would like to know when the gravel will be repaired and taken out of the lake, and when the wood chips would be taken out of the lake as well. This is the first accident on Isleview Road in over 30 years. We were told when Isleview Road was opened and widened that it was done for the safety of our citizens. The speed limit on the slough is 25 miles an hour. If somebody was going into the slough, they either had to be speeding or on a cell phone or inattentive driving. The unintended consequences of widening our road is we've now had our first accident on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
My name is Cindy Shawless, 1120 Garrett Bay Road. And I was not present at the civility conference on Saturday. However, I have a comment about some reaction to it, and that is the idea of the 3-minute limit. I understand that, and I think that's probably very wise, because we have seen over time that we have many citizens who do want to speak. My comment, though, is that we can have 17 people speak on the same issue if it is an important issue to them, and I don't quite understand how that therefore becomes promoting a platform. I remember a meeting a couple of years ago when there were at least 35 of us here to speak on a particular topic that we felt very strongly about. When it came to number 17, I pulled back, as did many of the people who were with me, who were there to speak sincerely on the topic. So 3 minutes, yes, but I think everybody should be allowed to speak and say what they have to say, I guess, and feel comfortable that they're not up there trying to promote a platform, but just present their ideas. Because every time we speak, we don't necessarily present a new idea, but we might feel strongly. And I think we need to know who feels strongly about an issue. That same meeting, people said, well, there were only 17 people who believed that. Well, no, there might have been 50, but we didn't speak because we didn't want to repeat. I guess my 3 minutes is up, whether I've said it or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, please?
Mike Barkey, and I have a question about public input. If I understand it correctly now, the board is going to have a discussion, then it will be open to some comments and questions from the citizens, and then the board will go back and make decisions based upon it. So is that this is my question, is it in effect this evening, or do you have to go back and change the ordinance accordingly and put that in there before it goes into effect at the next meeting?
We'll handle it that way tonight.
Thank you.
Anybody else, general comments?
Luke Vatos, Garrett Bluff Court. I'd like a divorce. The idea of promoting the heritage roads was my idea, and then I had the request from the chair to chair an unofficial subcommittee. But I think the whole topic of anything to do with roads is so contentious that any member of the town board on that is not going to work very well. I don't think it's going to be in the best interest. So I'd like to request at least consideration for my not pursuing that role at all, as much as I agree with the concept on the one hand. And if this is an issue that needs to be discussed as a town issue, I would request that we put it on the agenda for next time.
Thank you. Anybody else, general comments? All right, on agendized items, I think it's probably easier to go row by row. First row, second row? Yeah.
Possibly 11C.
Yes, next? Next?
11B.
11 what?
D.
B.
Kevin?
Possibly 11C, possibly 12A.
Susan?
9, 10, 12, 13, 14.
Next row, Mike.
11B paving.
Anybody else, that row, Mike?
10 and 11B.
I don't have, what does Barkey have?
11B paving.
And Mike?
Mike, again, I'm sorry.
Number 10 and 11B.
Yes?
Agenda item 12.
Paul?
Number 10 and 12 ACD.
And what?
What was the last one again, Paul?
Number 10 and number 12 ACD.
A through D,
AC and D.
A, C, and D?
Okay, anybody else in the last row?
Could you have me on 12D as well, please?
Sure. Anybody in the bleacher section back there? Okay. All right, then we'll go on. Prior to having Hugh sit on the board, he made a request for an agendized item of town board compensation. Since he wasn't on the board at that particular time, we put it back to this, so I'll turn it over to,
Number 9.
wait, I'm sorry. Committee appointments, I'm sorry. I'm going to recommend that, and I'll make a motion that we appoint Gary Farber to the IT committee. We have a request from the chair.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
How many committees is Gary on?
3 or 4. He chairs the Parks and Properties. So, any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Now back to number 10, I'm sorry. Hugh?
Sure, I fully understand that state law requires that any change in the compensation for supervisors, I think it's within 30 days of the election or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the time limit is, but we're well past it. But my point is that, and I've sort of, I guess kind of in general, is Liberty Grove doesn't have a terrible amount of excess money right now. In fact, I think that we're probably sort of at the bottom of the barrel for cash. And I think it would be a good effort in the part of the board members to show their concern for the lack of funds in the general fund is to limit their compensation. I know that as a board member, I'm supposed to be paid $5,000 a year, plus I believe $35 a meeting. When I served on the county board, contrary to what Mr. Walker printed in the paper, I didn't earn a lot of money, but you get paid $25 an hour for the county board, and so for probably an average meeting was $37.50 an hour and a half. And if you are prudent, you would probably review for an hour before you went to the meeting, and then you had an hour and a half, hour drive down, hour drive back, so you spent about 5 hours for $37, which is not a great amount of compensation. And so that's what you sort of expect to earn when you're on the county board. The town board here certainly earns a lot more than that. And I'm certainly willing to forego the $5,000 a year and take the $35 a meeting as compensation. I think that's more than fair. It's certainly greater than what I think they would get compensated on the county board. And we can't make a motion to it, but I would hope that you would consider doing that.
I'd like to clarify one thing. We are not at the bottom of the barrel. The budget is covered this year.
I understand that, John, but you know, you
But
can,
please don't make that sort of statement because there are people in the audience that are going to be misled by that.
but those funds can be carried forward to the next year. And
I have a question for Mr. Mulliken. After hearing what you said, I did a little digging. I contacted the finance office and talked with Ms. Scalish. Hugh, in the 12 years that you served at the county, you took in $7,060 in per diems, $28.55 in mileage, and $99.15. That was the average per year. In the 12 years that you served, you took in per diems of $84,720, mileage of $34,260.61, for a total in your time at the county of $118,980.61. How dare you?
I don't know if those are accurate figures.
Those are accurate figures from the finance office.
Well, I can tell you, Nancy, I don't know if they're accurate or not, but the fact of the matter is you earned up about $6 or $7 an hour when you serve in the county board.
Anybody else have a comment?
You mean in general?
Yeah.
Compensation?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're setting a dangerous precedent on several levels. I understand where Hugh is coming from, in terms of closing what is perceived as a budget gap. I mean, we did request a levy override for the first time in many years. First time period, excuse me. And it was defeated, and that was in anticipation of the gap that we see between revenue and expenses, particularly in 2015. If the only thing that we can come up with as a board, and at least this is what I've heard so far, and there are other agenda items, perhaps even tonight, that might address a bigger plan as to what will be suggested. I know, at the town meeting on the levy, you had opposed it, but he also said the town should spend $1 million, not $500,000, on roads, and I agree with that. I think the town needs to spend more money on roads. I don't see the board's compensation going much toward being able to do that, unless there's a bigger plan, unless it's part of some bigger plan that involves more than just the town board being able to do that. When the country was founded and the Constitutional Convention was discussed, and the compensation for executives, not for legislators, was brought up, Benjamin Franklin suggested that the executive not be compensated. And the idea of not being compensated was for two reasons: avarice and ambition. And he said, if you pay an executive, they'll only want more, and they'll only want more power, and they'll become a king. I don't think we have that problem in Liberty Grove, and yet at the same time, the founders of the Constitution obviously did not agree with Benjamin Franklin. But I think that the dangerous precedent here is something that had been suggested in the newspaper, and that had to do with the comment that, and it doesn't look like the board needs the compensation, from what that would, whatever apparent reasons there might be, manifest that the board members really don't need the compensation. And I've been struggling with the idea of, is it anybody's business what I do with my compensation on the one hand? And then, as in a role as a public figure, maybe I do owe an explanation as to my compensation on the other hand. I have two jobs. This is one job, and I work at the Island Orchard Cider House part-time. And I know Danielle's not going to be happy about it, and we've had disagreements about this. But the money that I make happens to go toward several organizations to cure paralysis, spinal cord paralysis. We pledged when our son had an accident and became paralyzed that what we could do to support those. And the other day, Jack Finger had mentioned, you should be a member of the land trust. And I didn't tell Jack that, we limit our contributions and my compensation to donating to those, to Christopher Reeve Foundation, Miami Project, and so forth. So do I need the compensation? No. We could get along without it. At the same time, though, I would not want to give up what that compensation goes for. And so here I am saying something I didn't want to have to say, And I think my point is, though, once we get into the habit of deciding whether the town board member needs compensation, we start opening a can of worms that really isn't anybody's business. And I think we're going to discourage people who might need that compensation. Let's put it that way as well.
Anybody else?
I'd like to comment, if I'm good, John, just to say, I'd just like a quote from the unapproved minutes from the Parks property, and I'm quoting you, John. It says, Lowry said, "The board has been very frugal in the past, and the lack of fiscal application is coming back to bite us now. Improvements will have to be sold to the public when the final impact is known." And you sort of alluded to that also. And I think that, I would agree that we need to spend more money in the roads, but I still think that the compensation for the board members should show the direction that the town should take as a general fiscal policy.
Hugh, my comment was made in reference to previous boards, and it was that the previous boards and this board and the ones that I've been chairman of have been very cautious, very frugal in how the money has been spent. And even though there's been a lot of digging going on, trying to find out that there's something underhanded going on, there is not. The accounting firm has confirmed that. I think it's very laudable that previous boards followed that pattern, and they kept the taxes low. And I think all of us in Liberty Grove appreciate that fact. But my comment was that now is coming back to bite us in the butt, if you pardon my expression, because we have failed to maintain our infrastructure. And the roads is the big one.
There's no question about that. I don't
And we have
disagree
been
with
down at the dock, that is another big one. And what has happened now is that the town is facing a projected, now we don't know this is going to be actually happen or not, but projected shortfall of about $400,000 when it comes time for the 2015 budgeting process. Now, that is based upon current needs that we have, that is based upon the cap, that does not factor into the credit that we get for new construction and so forth. But I think we have to be very realistic about this, and I think it's our responsibility to go to the public and say, look, this is what's happened. If we continue down this line, it's going to only get worse. And what we are doing is basically what the federal government has done. They are laying off on future generations a problem we will not solve. And I don't think that's correct. I think we owe it to the generations that follow us to do the correct thing and to keep our infrastructure in place, well maintained. And if that means we have to each pay a little more tax, then I guess that's what it means.
Well, I guess, John, that I really can't argue much about what you're talking about, but I go back to bringing up some of the old stuff. I begged you not to buy a new tractor. That's an issue, like as an example, I think that could have gone a long way by postponing that purchase. Those funds should have gone for paving a road, not for buying a tractor.
Well, I obviously disagree with you on that one, because that tractor saves time, and it replaces, it provides the crew with an opportunity to do a better job, and it's going to be here for approximately 20-some years at this point in time.
Okay, well, let's
And
leave
the other-
it.
just let me finish. And the other thing I have to point out to you is that we have put in these 5-year rolling plans that has basically exposed what has been going on. And obviously, when it comes to the equipment, it's the same situation, and that's showing up.
Okay, well, let's leave it at this. We agree to disagree, and that'd be fine.
Another thing that I would like to say is how many good candidates. We've had fairly robust elections in the last few years, and there have been some very good people that have run. Would the same caliber of people be running if they knew that this job would come without any compensation. I was speaking this morning with Becky Kerwin of the Planning Department, talking about reopening our smart growth plan. And at the end of our meeting, she asked about the how's the board doing up in Liberty Grove, and she said, if I ever get the urge to be overworked and underpaid and underappreciated, I'll run for a board somewhere. And that was the joke at the end of the meeting. But one of our board members in Ephraim years ago, they talked about compensation for plan commission members. And he made the comment, you get what you pay for. In this case, the amount of work that boards put out, municipal boards, especially behind the scenes, not just the monthly or the bi-monthly meeting up here, but the phone calls, the emails, the meetings that we are not compensated for. It's like an iceberg. It takes up a huge amount of time, and you folks out there see us and the meeting format. Well, you know, it's an hour a month or 2 hours a month or a couple hours here, a couple hours there. It's way more than that. It's almost like a second full-time job. And I personally I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it's wise to make this the point of solving our real or imagined financial crisis.
Okay, Frank?
When I decided to run in the fall of '08, the first time, I didn't even know that I was going to get a salary or $35 for a meeting. I have since discovered that the money that comes in probably doesn't begin to cover the expenses that I have of a computer, a telephone, driving, mileage, and it certainly doesn't compensate me for the agony and the sleepless nights that I go through because I care about the town of Liberty Grove. And I would like to see this town succeed and move ahead and be the glorious place we love to live in. I think what is there is fair. And I think it's very important that we leave it as it is. And if this has to be decided, any changes should be up to the citizens at an annual meeting. And if they want to withdraw our salaries, I think it would be a catastrophe for the town and for the people at the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. This is an issue that finance can take a look at, because we obviously have budgeting coming up, so. Maybe.
Isn't that a decision of the town at a town meeting?
Right. But it's the proposed budget. Well, you're correct. The salaries are not, that's correct.
No, we can't
Okay.
touch it.
All right. I think the horse is dead. Let's go on. Number 11, consider highway committee recommendations. Just a very quick comment before we do this. One of the reasons. Yeah, but we're going to discuss this first.
Oh, I see.
And then they'll have an opportunity to comment, and then we'll come back.
Compensation?
No,
Oh, we're done.
We didn't do 9 or 10 yet.
no. Was there somebody on the 10?
comment on
9 and 10.
board compensation.
Mike Mercier.
Oh, I'm
Are
sorry.
we on 10?
Okay.
And 9.
Mike Mercier and Paul Goodman were on 10.
9 first.
Go ahead, 9.
Okay. 9 was about committee appointments.
Right.
Once again, I just want
Car-
to.
Please.
There. Okay.
Once again, I would like to comment that we would very much like to see Hugh put on some committees. I know Gary Farber's on a lot of committees now. You can keep adding him to them, but it's really very obvious that you're not putting Hugh on committees, and we would like to see his experience on these committees.
Somebody else on 9?
No.
10 was
Mike Mercier?
Mike Percy?
I think what was needed to be said was already said, thanks.
Okay. Paul?
Paul.
I gather it was Paul. He was up and going.
Actually, after listening to it, it didn't go the direction I thought it was going to be going on the compensation issue, but I wanted to be on it just in case of that. But from the way things look, maybe there should be some funding set aside for a little more civility training or more often or something, because things seem like they're a little ragged around here as far as civility goes, but.
They are indeed.
Yes.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else on that one?
No, not that I've got.
Okay, now back to 11, I'm sorry. Quick comment before we go into the designating Wildwood Road as a heritage road and the others. One of the reasons I wanted the board to go down and take a look at the gravel pit was the fact that we have quite an investment there. A comment had been made that the county would not buy gravel from us because it was not up to the standards and so forth. I asked Bud to contact the county, the highway commissioner. The response from the highway commissioner was that they have never considered buying gravel from the town. They wouldn't consider buying gravel from the town. The supervisors didn't know anything about it, and they certainly didn't know anything about the hardness, that it would have any effect. So I think we need to clarify a little bit that the county has never been interested in it. We are not interested in it, and it had nothing to do with the quality of the gravel. I think we, from what I can tell, have pretty good gravel. Okay, we have a portion of Wildwood Road as a heritage road. This was from last meeting, but it wasn't posted correctly. I don't know if the road chairman is here. He is not. I think you have the sheet in front of you. The chair would entertain a motion to either approve or reject.
I would move that the board approve the designated portion of Wildwood Road as a heritage road.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Was there anybody speaking on this one?
No, I had Susie on 11, but I don't know which ones.
Not 11, I'm not on 11.
That's all.
Okay. There is a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Paving of Garrett Bay Road. Bud, I guess I'll let you kind of fill things in.
The highway committee met, and the decision, recommendation from the highway committee was to reject the bid on, for paving the road at $154,900 due to lack of funds that were budgeted for that amount. We have trip money on that road. There'll be an alternate road suggested for that at a future date. But at this point, the amount for paving that was bid out from Maplewood to the launch ramp came in at $154,900. There was some comment also about doing portions of that road, doing the worst sections. The committee felt that paving in sections is not a good idea because you have good, bad, which makes for strange happenings when you're plowing and even driving down the road. So the recommendation is to reject the Northeast Asphalt bid due to lack of funds in the budget, passed unanimously 7-0.
Comments from the board? Do we have anybody in the audience wanting to speak on that?
Well,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Public comment first?
No, go.
No.
So they know what we're thinking.
Yeah, I hate to not defer to the highway committee because the people on the highway committee obviously know a lot better about the idea of paving portions of it. But for somebody who drives down that road every day and no other choice, it is a bone-jarring ride, to say the least. And my concern is not just for cars that really do get a beating down that road. And this past winter, it was bad before this winter, and this winter has devastated that road, at least portions of it, especially between Maple Grove and the boat launch, which had been the subject of the repaving proposal. But you look down there, and now is the season where the bikers go on there as well. Many bikers go on Garrett Bay Road. And there are chunks of the edge where bikers would normally go that don't even exist anymore. And I see this as a real problem, not having this paved, or a lesser portion of it that might fit the budget. And I do understand, and I was not able to attend the highway committee, and obviously not deferring to the idea that paving sections doesn't make for a good practice. To me, I think we go ahead and do at least the most egregious portion of that road, truly for safety's sake, and not just cars, but bicyclists as well.
Okay, anybody else on the board? Just for the audience edification on this, the trip money, which is approximately $20-some thousand, to apply that to Garrett Bay Road would require us to go to a 22-foot paved surface, and both the board and the highway committee have said that we will not do that. We will keep it at a 20-foot with a 2-foot shoulder. So the trip money, which is available for 2 years, will need to be applied to a different road. Okay, I don't know if anybody from the audience had a mic?
I had Carol Moronic on there first,
Oh,
11B, yeah.
Well, this is the timing is really good, because I would like to react to something which John just said, which I believe needs to be clarified. I believe that the trip form has a paragraph on the back that says that the town has the option, or I should say the discretion, to not necessarily interpret the suggestions or the things that were written on the trip form, if due to various reasons, one of which is environmental, and others may be budgetary, I'm not really sure, but I know we have seen the trip form many, many times when it was being used for Isletview Road. And I don't believe that we would be having to apply it to a 22-foot road, but that's just basically what I think I remember, and I wish you would look at the form and that little paragraph on the back just to see if I'm correct. The real reason I had signed up for speaking here is that I am concerned. Obviously, Garrett Bay Road is in terrible shape right now due to weather and also due to work which was done because of the machinery that was on it, removing trees and stumps. But the winter has really made it much, much worse. And I would like to see it repaired. However, I would like to please remind you of what was said at the meeting when we discussed the ash borer situation in the park, and how this relates to the paving of Garrett Bay Road. I would like to respectfully disagree with something that Gary Farber said at the Highway Committee meeting on Monday. And that is that the DNR gentleman said that it would be okay to do with the paving despite all the work, all the heavy load of logs on the road if they were to take the trees down. He was the one that brought the subject up, and he said, I understand Liberty Grove is talking about paving, and I would suggest that they not do that. It was not he that said, oh, if you do it in the dead of winter, it doesn't matter. It was a gentleman who is a resident here who also had talked about fire and the danger of fire with dead trees in the park. But I believe he was the one who said, not the DNR person. He actually repeated his statement again afterwards. I would hate to have that road decided to be, you decide to pave that road until after the meeting takes place. And I wish that maybe, Bud, you can remind us all what the date is and time of that meeting at the County Parks Commission or committee, whichever they are, in Sturgeon Bay. I think it's coming up this month at the airport.
We're coming up to 3, Carol.
Excuse me? Could you, if we could please have a reminder of when that meeting is, so people here who would like to go can attend, because it is a very important meeting, and we hope that they will decide not to take the trees down. Do you have that information at hand on your calendar?
We'll get it.
18th.
The 18th?
Yep, 10 a.m. I
10
believe
a.m.
it is at the airport.
Great, thank you. I hope a lot of people attend.
I'm not sure it's on the agenda, though, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is on the agenda.
It is.
Mike Barkey, and I'm on the Highway Committee, and I voted with the majority not to pave Garrett Bay Road, but it's a real conundrum, as you've heard here. Much of what Lou said, I 99% agree with what he said, and I would have made the same remarks. Carol also brought up some very interesting issues that are involved, and that is what the county will decide to do with the trees that are there. But honestly, I've driven that road since the meeting on Monday, and it just gets progressively worse every day. It's a liability, and I feel that, all of us will be to blame if there's a serious accident on that road to a bicyclist, a pedestrian, or a car, or whatever. I know that the funds are limited. We talked about in the Highway Committee of maybe 72 or 78,000 or whatever, various numbers were thrown out. That would give us at least something to work with, because there are places on that road that are in very poor shape. And I know there are other roads here in the town that have had sections paved, resurfaced. I know it's not an ideal situation. I recall somewhere in the back of my mind that there's a contingency fund of some thousands of dollars. Maybe some money could be taken from that to be put towards repairing that road. But honestly, if something is not done with that road, it's an accident waiting to happen, really. It really is. Perhaps the best thing to do is to table this agenda item until after that June 18th meeting to find out, and then have at least a better idea. Because if you decide to go ahead and pave the road, the opportunity or the potential for the damage from the heavy trucks carrying timber out of the park would damage and lay to waste all the money that was and work that was done on the road. So tread carefully, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mike Mercier, did he?
Mike, did you?
Michael Mercier, 12054 Highway 42 in Ellison Bay. I just would reiterate, as a public citizen who also travels that road quite often, that I think it's imperative we find a way. It is very dangerous, and as Mike just stated, it's progressively getting worse. We continue to have rainfall like we had the other day. It's going to continue to rut, and it's going to be a problem. As Lou said, tons and tons of bikers use that road, and that's probably more worrisome than the cars, to be honest with you. But I do believe that it is a liability for the town currently, and I think it would behoove the town to consider it an emergency situation and take the necessary steps that they would need to take to solve the problem. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have Kevin on here too. Kevin, are you gonna talk on this?
on 11,
Yeah, he's
C.
C? I got something to say here.
okay.
Just a reminder to everybody that we're not talking about this because the money isn't there. We're talking about it because the town meeting back in November did not authorize the town to spend over the $5,000 per mile. That's what's holding us back here. If we had the authorization to spend over $5,000 per mile, as was proposed at the budget, or at the special town meeting after the budget hearing, we could be doing more. But without doing that, we are limited to spending $73,000 on paving. And if we go to the 158 or whatever, then we're going to be cutting into everything else, road salt, or salt for the roads, road oil, whatever, fuel, propane, everything else. So that's what the crunch is here. The only way to go ahead and really get it done with and spend the adequate amount of money is to have another special town meeting where the authorization would be to go ahead and spend X number of dollars over the 500,000 and come up with an amount that would cover that. We've done this before in the middle of the year on Humbug Road years ago, when we realized the traffic on Humbug Road was way worse than we had thought, and the thing was, the gravel was just going to pieces weekly. So we held a special town meeting in the middle of the summer and authorized, I think it was $73,000 to extra to pave Humbug where we did. So that's basically where we're, I mean, you can sit, okay, we got $73,000, where are we gonna pave that? And the highway committee is gonna be working on that at their next meeting, what they're gonna do if the town board decides to back off on Garrett Bay.
So I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
We have $73,000 budgeted for that? Is that what,
No, we have $73,000 available that could be used for paving
okay,
when figuring out what we need to get through the rest of the year
okay. And so,
on
and then,
highway expenses.
okay, and then the trip funds were $20,000? Is that,
The trip fund's out,
I mean, it was $20,000, right? Something like that?
right around that number.
So even if you had the 73 and 20, it's only 93,000. It's 6 or 7.
The trip fund doesn't
Yeah, I know. I mean, if you can add it.
count.
So here's a question for you. Could you in fact just, I remember in the past, the town would sometimes tear out a road and leave it gravel for the winter and come back the next year?
Can do that.
Then you'd be under the funds, I assume, that you're allowed to spend. It would take the dangerousness out of the road if you kept it graded every so often.
Okay, we did that on another road, and we got complaints that, from people that had Cadillacs and Mercedes, that the gravel was chipping their cars up. Plus, it makes plowing in the wintertime very difficult. You don't plow those roads. You have to get the grader out there to hold the blade up, for one thing, because otherwise your plow digs in. You have to wait till that surface is frozen before you can plow it properly.
I live on a gravel road, I know.
Excuse me, there is a process to harden a gravel road.
Jonathan Ort gave me some
familiar with it,
information on a product that he was gonna start putting down in driveways here. It emulsifies and cuts the dust way down. So, I mean, that's a possibility maybe.
Frank?
My feeling after watching these roads for 42 years or more is it's imperative that we resurface Garrett Bay Road. It's short-sighted not to do it, and therefore I'd like to make a motion that we have a special meeting to proceed to change what was decided at the $5,000 for whatever it was, per mile, to what it's necessary to get the job done this year.
I'll second that.
So I have a question though. Even if you got that, do we have the money to do it?
No, that would, well, that's,
We have to research our funds and see what we can use. Because now we've got capital reserve, we've got contingency. We need to look into those accounts where it's possible to take that money.
what's the estimate to pave that road?
155,000.
154.9. Yeah.
So basically, we'd be looking for 70, 80,000 somewhere.
We'd be looking for about 80,000.
I said, basically, the finance committee would be looking for $70,000, $80,000 more. We wouldn't be able to take that from capital reserve because it's not a capital project. Contingency would be something we could look at in maybe other areas.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to hold a special town meeting to exceed the, basically, well, no, read the motion. It wasn't to exceed, it was to,
Well, Frank kind of tailed off in the end there. I didn't get everything, so. Hold a special town meeting to basically exceed the $5,000 per mile statutory expense limit. And it wouldn't be that general. You'd come up with a specific number that you're going to,
Apply specifically to
that
Garrett Bay.
the electors would authorize to do that project.
any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I think it'd be kind of foolish. I mean, I'm not arguing against the $5,000. I think that's silly not to exceed that. But if you have to raid all your other funds to, in fact, pave one road, you've sort of left yourself very vulnerable for other accidents or other problems that may come along. And so, for that reason, I just can't support raiding all the little funds that we got left around here to pave one road. I think that's not in anyone's best interest.
Any other discussion?
Now, so the motion is just to exceed the $5,000. Is that true? Not to continue to pay, take a second motion to actually pave the road, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Would come back to the board to pave it, and the board would decide where to get the funds.
But then if you go to the town meeting and this doesn't go, you're going to be sitting here again after that meeting, very possibly, yes or no on it. Because if the town meeting does not authorize the exceeding or the number for Garrett Bay Road, then we go back to square one to decide what we're going to do. Go back to Mike's, Lou taking the worst section and doing $73,000 worth of paving and talking with Northeast or whoever where that would fit in there if you still wanted to do it that way.
I hate that. The motion would allow us to have a summer meeting or a special meeting to exceed the $5,000. That's the only thing we're voting on right now. All right. Special meeting.
And the town board has the authority to call a special town meeting.
The caveat is that if you utilize the 78,000 that we actually have,
Approximately.
and apply that toward the 154.9, so basically you're only going to go out for another, $70,000. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, in effect.
Very much so. That's my concern.
Well, we did have money in the budget for paving, and we pulled a whole bunch of that out to make the 5,000 per mile, so we'd have to go back and look at that to see if we can rejuvenate that and find out what exactly was taken out, where to put it back in.
Yeah.
That's
But at the
what
very
I was
beginning of the
saying.
meeting, you said, John, that we're going to be $400,000 short probably for 15.
And that's if we follow our 5-year plans that we've got in force for parks and highways.
I've got does paving, is that always have to be done in the summertime?
What's that?
Does paving always need to be done in the summertime?
Warm
I'm just-
weather.
It can go into the fall.
It can go into the fall. I'm just wondering if there's any way to, use our $73,000 and have the paving done and pay for it in 2015. Can we put it off pay the rest of it off?
And we're robbing Pamela and Peter to pay Paul.
I'd like to speak to this issue just once again. We've put off doing roads for so long. It's a disaster situation. And if we take a little step now to find an extra $75,000, it's going to be so much better for 2015, 2016, 2017, because there are other roads that need to be done. We're so far behind. Even you said you should resurface a road every 20 years. We're doing it about every 35 years. And this is ridiculous to put this off, and I think the citizens have enough common sense to realize that their property values are going to disintegrate. If you have a house down in Garrett Bay on the waterfront that's for sale and somebody drives on a lousy road to get there, do you think they're going to buy it? Use your common sense. Thank you.
This isn't a unique problem to Liberty Grove by any stretch of the imagination. At the state highway conventions, which I've been to a number of times, many counties have gone to gravel roads. They just take out the paved, go to gravel. And a lot of people got caught in this whole thing. I mean, when you freeze the mill, or the levee, it's frozen.
Yep.
And I think that to ask for the people of Liberty Grove to have an override is, I think, is something to do, but I think you also have to demonstrate that the funds are being spent judiciously.
Well, you're talking about the 5,000 per mile?
No, I'm saying that if you want to have a levy override, just as Gibraltar High School or Gibraltar School System has done for years.
But we're not talking about levy override here.
Well, I'm bringing this up.
Can't have a levy at the town.
This is strictly,
No, I understand that, but I'm saying you're gonna have to do something like that.
oh, I think we said last year that we'd have to come back. you know, But we have to, obviously, we have to make a very good case for it, and educate the public, and hope that, the silent majority happens to show up. Okay, decision time, I guess. You want to read the motion, please, just so we're all clear?
The motion is that to hold a special town meeting to authorize exceeding expenses of $5,000 per mile of town roads.
I guess I would suggest that I would like to make a motion to amend that applies to Garrett Bay Road
Only?
only.
Do you need my approval to make that amendment? And the second also? I approve that addition.
Discussion on the amendment.
So Frank is seconding this?
Yes, I'm sorry. Since that's the road that's, okay.
So I
So,
have a question for you, John. What difference does it make? I mean, we have the roads to.
well, but we're only talking the difference to go over it, to get some $70,000, we're only talking about Garrett Bay Road right now.
Yeah.
So.
But if you pass it for every road, or if you have a summer thing, if you pass it for all the roads, you've crossed the major bridge.
No, you're putting a dollar limit on,
Right.
at the annual, or town meeting. We got $155,000, and my figures the other day showed, we had a little over 73,000 left after all the other highway expenses. So we could do $73,000 paving, so take 73 from the 155, and that gives you 82 in that neighborhood to,
Look for.
to do the whole road, from Maplewood down to the launch ramp.
Yeah, the discussion is only Garrett Bay Road at this point. It's not the other roads.
And it's gonna be cheaper to do it once, the entire job, number two. And if you think the price for asphalt's gonna be cheaper next year, forget it. So it's gonna cost us more the next year. It's just common sense to make this move, expect the electorate to understand it and support us, and go ahead and do it.
Right now, the asphalt is $1.79 per ton over last year's cost.
That's from Northeast or from the county?
Northeast County didn't bid. 63.65 per ton, 2,433 ton to do Garrett Bay Road.
Call the question.
All right, all in favor of the amendment, which is to,
The motion to exceed the 5,000 per mile.
no, just the amendment.
Applies to Garrett Bay Road
Garrett Bay
only.
Road,
That's
right.
what your amendment is saying.
Right, so the only thing we're voting on right now is the amendment that it applies only to Garrett Bay Road. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Now, the motion is to hold a special town meeting to exceed the $5,000, approximately $5,000 limit per mile. We're looking for approximately, what'd you say, 80,000?
Roughly 82 at this point.
Which we'll have that figure for the town meeting, and that it applies only to Garrett Bay Road. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Is there a date that we're gonna look at, or are we gonna determine that?
ASAP.
Well,
2 weeks.
That meeting at the airport, obviously, though, I don't think it
Yeah.
would be before then anyway, but that might have a bearing on what.
Once we have
The
it,
meeting at
next
the airport
schedule.
is when?
18.
18th.
The 18th. We're meeting on the,
18th.
oh,
It'll be in the morning.
You need a 15-day notice to
Yeah, you need a 15.
post this.
So we'd
It'll
have.
be
it'd
the
have
end of
to be
June.
after- yeah. What are you looking at?
You want to have it after the 18th? We'll have to.
We'll have
We
it
have
for
to,
15
yeah.
days, right? Oh, no. Yeah, we
Yep.
missed by one.
Just have it at the next town board meeting. That'd be soon enough.
Well, that's the 18th. That doesn't,
Oh, well,
that
then
doesn't
it's
block us
subsequent then.
under the 15-day
The
notice.
following week, the 25th, Wednesday, the 25th.
That would be fine.
Why don't we just have it at the next meeting that we can legally have it at? It's not gonna affect the date and time, or
It's a
the,
special meeting.
Well, you might get dragged out. The next town board meeting is July 2nd.
If we want to have it before the July 2nd meeting, we can. Go at 6.
Let's go on the
We got
25th.
one- We got one item.
Yeah. It doesn't need a board meeting, it means a special meeting with the
Right.
public. Yeah,
So that'd be June 25th?
June 25th
Wednesday, June 25th.
at 7 PM.
Well, plan,
Yeah, next week is 11, plan. Board, yeah, that would be a plan, and we're gonna start work on the comprehensive plan, so we'll be meeting regularly again.
what do we got other than that?
26,
Thursday, the 26th.
Well, it doesn't have to be Wednesday.
that's Thursday.
It's Thursday,
26 would be okay on my schedule.
That works.
7 o'clock? Okay, I'll make a motion that we hold a special town meeting to address the Garrett Bay Road paving on June 26th at 7 PM. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Set. Okay. Let's go on, because I'd asked to kind of discuss both 11C and 12D together. Let's go on to Parks and Properties, and then we'll go back and pick that up. Slip rental on South Pier. Gary? Or Janet?
What the Parks and, what
Yeah,
Parks
we've
decided
decided
to
to
do?
go ahead and rent the slips, however, we will be,
Yeah, please.
We've decided to go ahead and rent the 4 slips on the South Pier. However, we will be sending out a letter saying that the people that occupy those 4 slips have an option of either renting at their own risk or receiving their slip funds as a refund. So that's where that particular is at that point in time. We still feel, as a committee, that that pier is unstable and should not be rented, not only in terms of the boats, but in terms of pedestrian traffic also.
Any questions?
I don't think it was considered unstable, it's just considered dangerous when the wind came in,
Right.
and the boards aren't down deep enough to.
Do we have somebody wanting to speak on that?
What are we at, 12A?
Paul wanted to speak. Paul
Paul,
wanted to speak.
Paul Goodman, Kevin was on there.
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
Paul Goodman, Ellison Bay. The water's a little higher this year, so the boards are a little bit better than they were last year.
About a
So-
foot better, right?
About a foot better,
Yeah.
and so that's good, that would help things on that. I don't know about the stability of it, maybe if you had something real large laying there, it might shake it loose a little bit, but I don't know why it couldn't be firmed up a little bit. I don't know what it would take to do it. You know, because work's been done there, now you're gonna lose dock rental slips in your own marina. It doesn't seem like that's quite the program, has just dropped the marina because of that. Maybe you could maybe they could pound something down or something, you know, there might be ways of correcting it there that would be minor, that wouldn't cost hardly anything. You don't wanna dump a lot of money into the harbor the way it looks, the way the harbor looks. But, maybe, I can't see any reason why you'd want to lose dock rental slips just because there was work done next door at the dock, and if that destabilized it, maybe you could talk to them, get it stabilized, or maybe it was just a bad pier before that even, and it needs a little bit of work, you know, that's the, but I think you should just kind of fix it up just a little bit, and it'll probably work.
The, Mike Carr was down there and basically straightened it up a little bit.
He pounded it down, leveled it out, took care of the dock boards and everything. And Bud said this afternoon, we got a bill from him for $3,400.
Yes.
So, and he says it's stable.
Okay, the recommendation coming from the Parks and Property then is to allow the slip rentals on the South Pier, but send a letter to those people that they do that at their own risk.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do you want to repeat it? Please.
I move that the board approve the recommendation from the Parks and Property Committee to rent the slips on the north side of the south extension of pier, notifying the people that essentially it's at their risk. And what else did you say?
Excuse me, I was supposed to be able to talk about this, wasn't I? I was signed up.
We'll get it.
I got Jill on number 12.
Yes, am I later, or, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Do you have 12 what? Just
I
12?
just got 12.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get you in. We'll get you in.
And that they have the option of either renting.
Renting
slip
or
receiving a refund.
receiving a refund. Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Jill, go ahead and make your comment, please.
Well, there's a couple of things I'd like to comment. Are you redoing your dock? I mean, our dock? The end of the dock was torn off, wasn't it?
That's been repaired.
Okay, does that mean the next door neighbor is encroaching on our riparian zone?
I think it's the other way, Joe.
Pardon me?
I think it's the other way.
Is there a map or something that we could look at someday before all this?
We'll answer that when we get back to our discussion. I'll explain that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because my concern is that it looks like the town is losing, it's losing a slip, or it's losing in its riparian zone. And what my problem would be is the traffic. That would be, if you're launching all these fishermen on the town dock, who's gonna use the egress and ingress?
Right.
And what riparian zone belongs to who? It appeared to me that there was an encroachment that is gonna be, we're gonna be losing our riparian zone to a private interest who's in the business of making money. And we're just, we're collecting a fee, obviously, but there's a question of who's agreeing, what sort of an agreement is going to take place so that we don't lose, as in the doctrine of, the fair doctrine that is supposed to be looked at before any of these decisions are made.
Okay.
So, I have more to say, but I'm kind of in the dark. I don't know where any of this came from. I saw a couple of agenda items, I think it was in February, but we need to protect our interests. It's the public interest.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how much the board is aware. I think the board is fully aware of it, come think about it, just for, again, the edification. The survey map that we have indicates that the survey line, if you will, basically crosses right down the south side of that dock, so that it's on our side of the line. Heritage Harbor, I believe, had a survey done, but that stopped at the water, if I'm correct.
It was a site plan. not a
Site
survey,
plan.
But they did mark, there were 3 markers, I think, going out the dock, starting at that one place.
Okay.
What do those mark, Kevin?
Was that,
What do those markers mark?
the property line?
The riparian line,
Excuse me, the riparian.
Yeah.
and those
So-
were on the dock itself. The dock
on
is
the
shifted
dock
to the
itself.
south, so we're actually encroaching in their property if in fact those survey marks are correct.
But the dock is shifted because there was dredging over the years. And the dock moved into the hole that was created by the dredging, not only in the dredging that was done this last winter to put your new southern wall in, but in previous years. I contend that when John Fitzgerald put that dock in, he used the current survey marks at that time. I went down there and looked for the iron rods that are usually there last fall before the snow came. They were gone. So, and if you know surveyors in this area, every surveyor starts with the beginning line on the corner of their property he's gonna survey, and he goes back to a basic marker. And their surveys differ always. They always differ. So I think it's gonna be very easy to come to an agreement that that dock, number one, with Kevin's owners, that dock is owned by the town.
Okay, we're kind of morphing over into that.
But I'm just
joint-
trying to
yeah.
explain the background so everybody understands all of the information.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to support the well, read it so we have it correctly, please.
The motion is to approve the recommendation to rent the slips on the South Pier at their own risk with the option of renting the slip or getting a refund on that slip.
Rent at your own risk or get a refund.
Yeah. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Has anyone checked with our municipal insurance company to find out if that exposes us?
Yeah, we should do that.
We will.
Yeah,
Alright.
that was part of the discussion at
Parks
Parks
Committee
and
meeting,
Property.
yeah.
Okay, going on to B, modifying parking in the flagpole area. Gary?
Okay, there was some question in terms of vehicle traffic in the gravel area because of the new concrete that was laid over the winter. I talked to Jay. The slab of concrete at the entrance to the gravel parking lot is 11 inches thick. The rest of the concrete walkway is approximately 5 to 6 inches thick. So in terms of even heavy vehicle traffic, it should be okay. The other issue is that that area is used heavily by not only locals, but a lot of our visitors to view the sunset. And at times, because of the overflow of the sport fishermen vehicles and trailers, they end up, instead of going down to the off-site parking on Mink River Road, they park their trucks and cars and trailers on the gravel lot to the point where other vehicles and pedestrians cannot get out there. So our proposal was to either put in some type of barrier to keep vehicle traffic out, or to put up signage saying there would be no trailer parking on the gravel area. The decision was made not to have trailer parking on the gravel area, and that will be enforced. It'll be part of our ordinance, and will be enforced by our harbor master.
A sign
Yes,
saying that as opposed to a blockade.
Right.
right.
Big stone was proposed.
Okay, we have anybody speaking on that one?
I believe not.
Okay. No, I don't think so.
The reason the idea of the stone was rejected was, I'm sorry, Frank, I didn't mean to.
No,
cut
I
you
don't
off.
honestly.
Go ahead.
Was they felt that the emergency vehicles couldn't get out there if there's a big stone put up there. I'm not sure signs.
That
would
was
be
one
allowed.
reason.
Yeah, and it was just sort of the appearance of being very restrictive that way as well, both in terms of a practical and sort of a public relations
Right.
aspect to it as well.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we put up signage that no parking, no trailer parking allowed on the flagpole area at the Ellison Bay Marina.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Modify commercial launch rate.
It was decided to ask everyone, to pay, the commercial people, to pay $40 for an annual sticker for their trailer.
I believe it was $100.
It's $100.
$100?
The reason for that is, other area marinas are charging a commercial rate for launching. They did discuss having a per launch rate of $25, and the committee said they didn't wanna do that. They wanted to just have a flat commercial rate of $100 for the season. Launch at any of the launch ramps, you know, it doesn't restrict you to a particular launch ramp. So they would like to get that put into the ordinance so that it can be enforced.
So I think what we need to do is request the administrator or clerk to bring us an ordinance with that in it for the next meeting, obviously.
Can we make and pass a motion at this meeting asking the,
Well, it's kind
Kind of late this year. almost.
until you actually have the wording of the ordinance, it's gonna be a little difficult.
okay, well,
Unless we wanna take a quick recess and see how fast he works.
Not that fast.
Not that,
so we would have this for our board meeting on the 18th of June.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't need a motion for him to do that for us and bring
I
it
think
back.
it
It'll
just-
be on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, now back to C of 11 and D of 12. You've got in your packet the,
Excuse me.
yes,
You had public input on C of, on C?
On what?
Yeah, we have public input on both those, John.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't have the public input on it.
Bud's not poking me on that, although it's not his fault.
Oh, yeah. Goodman.
That's right. Thank you. I guess the question on it is, it's for commercial launching, so if, I usually been paying, sending in a fee for launching my boat, but if the commercial guys launch it, you don't have to pay the fee yourself then. If your boat's being launched by the commercial guy, it's gonna be covered by their guy. You don't have to pay the launch fee separately, so we can quit paying the launch fee. Okay. The other thing is, the launch fee for kayaks and things, has that been changed, or do kayak companies and things, I know there's a fee paid somehow, but what is the fee for that?
It's $100,
Yeah.
and the kayakers are paying it very willingly.
Okay, and it's $100 for the company, or does every individual, what about the individual kayaks that launch?
They also buy most of them buy an annual pass.
Okay, or look, like the tourists that come in and have them, they pay the $5 or whatever it is to launch?
Supposed to be.
Good, and can they launch at the launch ramp in Ellison Bay, or it's slippery, they say sometimes, so they don't launch, or do they have to go to the beach to launch, or how do they launch their kayaks from Ellison Bay?
They're not supposed to be launching anywhere at the marina. They're launching at Garrett Bay, Sand Bay, Europe Lake.
North Bay.
At the beach, I think they're doing it, but they're doing it from the rock side,
Okay,
not the beach side, so that they're not launching with swimmers.
okay, so they could pretty much really launch their kayak if they're down at Sand Bay Park or something off the beach there or anything, they don't have to have a specific spot to put their kayak in or anything. There's no rule.
trail there, though, for kayaks.
There's a what, trail for them? Yeah, there's a trail, but I mean, they don't have, they could go anywhere, carry one along and drop it in. When they do it on the trail, then is there a thing there that they pay at that beach also, or not? There is, okay. But they could actually just dump it in the beach anywhere. Good, thank you.
You got anything else on that one?
I think that's all.
Okay, back to 11C, which leads us then to the harbor. You've got the report from Bodwin on this is the storm sewer. And I don't know if you've had a chance to really take a look at it. The upshot of the whole thing is that the storm sewer is damaged to the point where it's not functioning. He is estimating $33,600 to replace the storm sewer. That does not include repaving the road. And one of the pictures that you have is the outfall in the sheet metal, or the sheeting at the harbor. That takes us to 12D. The harbor basically is a disaster, to put it mildly. It needs a lot of work. Gary, I don't know if you want to address this. I mean, it's pretty much dilapidated from over the years and so forth. Not a lot of money has been spent on it, obviously. The discussion, and I suggested it at the meeting the other day, was that maybe the thing to do is to look at these two projects as one, and obviously fix the storm sewer situation, but at the same time, look at that harbor and figure out how we can bring that harbor into much better condition than it is. That's probably a major project. That's not going to be inexpensive. And there was a suggestion, I believe it came from Gary, that maybe on that south pier is actually put cribbing in there, which would certainly absorb a lot of the wave action and storms. And another suggestion, maybe take a look at where the flagpole is and do some construction out there. You might be able to get a couple more slips. I don't know. I mean, that's just tossing that out. Toss it to the board. It's two major projects.
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, that this is one of those must-do things. There's a big lake that forms right in front of the former Cedar Grove's office every time. And we have that road, it's a disaster. People going to the restaurant or to the grocery store or stepping through poles. People that go into Cedar Grove have to go through a busted-up road. I think it's important that we go ahead and do this as soon as possible. It just has to be done. And I think the electorate will understand.
There was a question raised because of the timing of this as to when really to be able to do this and not interrupt the businesses that are involved there. And I guess basically it came down to either do it early spring or late fall.
Yeah, we could do it late fall or early next spring. And maybe this is something we could add to the special meeting.
Is there any money at all budgeted for either project?
Nope.
We did have money budgeted to pave that section of Cedar Shore Road, but that was cut out. That was cut out at the town meeting.
Now, this goes back to my earlier comment about the infrastructure that we have that's been kind of patchworked a long time, and we can certainly do the patchwork again, but it kind of puts it off to the next group, if you will. And I'm not sure at this point in time where you even begin on this thing. I mean, it's very obviously, if you're gonna take a look at the harbor, you've gotta get somebody who's experienced in harbor construction and what can and cannot be done. We haven't got money to do that at this stage of the game, I don't think.
And if we, in conjunction with the 82,000 or whatever that number is going to be for Garrett Bay Road, the money that we pulled off of Cedar Shore Road might be part of that. And then we're still going to be limited to, with our highway expenditures, that we can't spend anything on that this year. So we'd have to be looking to next year, the way it looks to me, to put that in the budget and see how things go in the fall.
And John, maybe I missed, the connection then between repairing the problem that's on Cedar Shore, which we all know is a problem on the one hand, and that connection with 12D on the other hand. Is that,
Well, what happens with that outfall pipe?
Yeah.
You know, that sheeting basically is pretty much shot. So why would you put a new outfall pipe there and not address the sheeting itself? I mean, you know, it would make sense to do it together, I guess. And if you're gonna do that, then why wouldn't you look at the whole harbor and address the needs there?
but then my concern would be if the electorate, obviously it seems like it would need like a bond issue or something like
I would
that
think, yeah.
with the extent of the cost of that. And were that to be defeated, would that jeopardize the work on Cedar Shore? Or was there a way that the town would just do it anyway and say, well, you know?
We could budget for it and hope that it passed, yeah. And you could go out and borrow to do it, but that, or you could, well, it's a capital, actually, the sewer aspect of it is a capital.
It's a capital thing, there's no problem
So
there.
the paving, not.
When do our major loans get paid off? What years? I can't remember.
18.
Both of them?
Well, there is the option on the one, I believe, that we can extend it, am I correct, Janet? But it doesn't gain us a heck of a lot.
If we extend a bond,
A bond.
Or
Well-
call the bond, I guess, I'm sorry.
right, and that, we probably should do that, but it's not gonna extend it.
No, that was a mistake.
Get a little bit of savings and interest, but, you know, not
It's not a great amount.
70, well, over 4 years, we'll save about $54,000, over 4 years.
I think we've got an immediate problem. We've got a storm sewer that's not working. It should work. We have a road that is dangerous. People walk between the restaurant and the store all the time. Their trucks unloading there. It's a mess. And it's as urgent as, in my book, as Garrett Bay Road.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
There's also a major safety concern. We budgeted last year to completely remove the old electrical wiring under the steel plates, which we started on the north wall, which is now in. And we got pedestals, new pedestals to put in there. Conduit was laying down, the wire was run. There is money from last year's budget that has already been appropriated and assigned to finish the work on the east section. That wire is still laying in a trough and will still generate an electrical charge into the water if the water puddles in that trough. We cannot go any further eliminating that safety issue until that storm sewer is finished and the parking lot is paved, because we're going to have to trench right across that area. And that right now is more of a liability, as far as the board is concerned, than that main walkway is.
That's true.
Absolutely true. That was identified
Yeah.
long before now, and we know it's there. That is definitely an exposure.
What does that power line feed?
What does it feed?
Yeah.
All of the boxes that are on the east side, there's, I believe, 3 of them. Boxes for boats to plug in their bilge pumps and stuff.
Plus that overhead light.
Plus, there's a feed that's gonna come off of the telephone pole over by the lighthouse that has been disconnected. So there
Right.
is no light in the marina now.
John?
Yes, go ahead.
I was listed on 12, can I ask something yet? I was listed on 12, can I ask something yet?
No. Well, the estimate from Bodwin was for the storm sewer
No,
itself.
she said she was listed.
I'm listed on number 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Can we get a clarification on, out of the highway budget of $500,000? I know that that means 5,000 per mile, but it doesn't mean 5,000 spent per mile fixing something. It's how you figure out what your total budget is. That would only be true if you were going to redo all 100 miles of roads. But I'm saying, what is the top priority, if it isn't Garrett Bay Road or this project, what are the top priority roads that you are going to fix with the $500,000 this year in order of importance?
The road was Garrett Bay Road, period.
What I think about is, what Susan's asking is, in other words, not every dollar of the 500,000 goes to paving. There are associated expenses that eat up a big
Right.
portion of that. And sort of whatever's left is sort of the 79,000 that's the fuel for the trucks and
Salt.
the salt and all the things.
What is the actual paving budget then about?
118,
Okay, so that's all the money that actually goes to actually fixing roads?
paving.
Resurfacing.
Strictly
Yeah.
surfacing.
Out of 500,000, okay.
Correct.
And obviously, that varies from year to year, depending on what roads you're anticipating paving.
Well, that's what we lost track of, is what one you are doing this year.
Yeah, Garrett Bay,
Garrett Bay, that's it.
were. May still. Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
I'm still, I don't know where exactly we are,
I'm not sure we are either.
On D, I signed up for D also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, I got ACD.
ACDC.
Okay. When you're looking at repairing that pipe coming out, draining the water from the hills and everything out into the harbor, you know, they're working with their harbor budget, which isn't a very big budget. I don't think that should be part of the harbor budget to replace the drainage pipes they come all the way, actually it drains all the way from the top of Ellison Bay Hill, somewhere down past the gas station, under the road there, I believe, and on Cedar Shore. There's quite a drainage system there, actually. And then it flows into the harbor there. I don't know that it should be part of the harbor expense, actually, to fix that. I think that should be categorized into the highway or something, not into the harbor.
right.
Because it's gonna skew the harbor, as far as their budget goes, it's gonna make like their budget's running crazy if they're doing this. Also, maybe, when they look at it, maybe the pipe shouldn't come out there. It just, you know, it always has, but it comes out inside of a harbor. Everything that flows down there, it's oil, it's everything, right in the harbor, you know? So, and then it just lays in there. I don't know, maybe they could, you know, I don't wanna get into where we spend gazillion dollars, but maybe they could cut it through into Wills Park area or something through there, who knows? Maybe there's a shortcut for it. Since it was done so many years ago, maybe they can see a different way of doing it that would be cheaper. You know, but it does come right into the harbor, and it's, you know, that is just, it's just runoff water.
Maybe we could reroute it to Bayview's Harbor.
Oh, no, that was,
No way.
I didn't want to suggest
No
that, but.
Gills Rock.
But anyway, there might be a way of diverting it somehow or doing something with it. You know, I mean, that is just raw water coming down, but it's, picks up everything all the way along. Everything past the gas station, drippings, the whole works. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the rest of it, the state will not do anything about until they repave the highway. And Steve Parent indicated that the rest of that storm sewer is in pretty good shape. It's just from 42 to the harbor, so.
Shouldn't that be the state then? If it's coming from 42, you could just key in after that.
They won't touch that, because it's not under a state road.
No, I'm talking about the 42, wouldn't they have to address the drainage and all that on 42, as they did by Hubbard's and JJ's and all that?
They've indicated they're not gonna do a thing until the road needs to be paved.
Well, I think you could argue with them. That's what I would.
Lots of luck.
I think you would have a good argument.
Okay,
I think so.
Oh, boys,
yeah.
we need a motion.
Well, I don't know I don't know where the board would like to go from this point. We're in the catch-22 again.
The discussion at Parks was, the next step would be, if we go ahead, would be to get biddable plans drawn up by an engineer to see what this whole project would cost. But that, again, is going to be a highway project. It's part highway and part harbor expense. And then do you look at replacing this sheeting? I don't know, maybe you look at putting cribs in there too. Then you'd really have something to absorb the waves.
That's a thought. Kevin?
I was at the Highway Committee meeting a few days ago, and first of all, I wanted to thank the committee members and the board for looking at a long-term solution here, and I can clearly see there aren't any easy ones. And I also appreciate you considering the impact on the businesses with how it's done, fall versus spring versus overlapping both. And all I wanted to say was that I've come across pictures dating back to 2001 of the recurring flooding problems, and if you would like to have Steve Parent, whoever is your engineer, contact me, I can share this information with them. This may wind up tying into our entrance too, because it's so close to the road. Who knows? Just, please put him in touch with me, and I'd be happy to share with him, so, thank you.
Well, and then I would make a motion, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I don't know if this is the time for me to give my input or not, but.
go ahead. We're kind of strained from what we said we'd do, but that's all right.
Okay, I do remember that right after the explosion in 2006, that those of us who are right in that area, and our house is right behind Pioneer Store, were told that the road could not be repaired as from the results of the explosion. In other words, the wall of the store fell right into the road that helped to deteriorate it right by the highway, between the highway and our house. But in any case, that nothing could be done until the store was rebuilt, which was, of course, a year later. And so it's been kind of a long time that this has been an issue. The drain hasn't been working sufficiently for many, many years, as Kevin just pointed out. It's, to me, I mean, we live there. It's not really physically impacting us, but we see that, I think that one little section of Cedar Shore Road is one of the most traveled spots in all of downtown Ellison Bay. And it's very important. It's a reflection for the businesses as to what they're dealing with, the parking, of course. There is more pedestrian traffic there than anywhere else in Ellison Bay. I think it is really important. I understand the drainage issues, the costs, et cetera. I would be surprised if you'd be allowed to have that drain straight into the lake the way things are now with environment and whatnot. So that may add to the cost. But please do whatever you can to expedite this. I know it's tough, and we certainly understand, but just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'd make a motion that we at least engage the engineer to do a study of both the road and the harbor to see what we're talking about at that point.
Is Parent got any background in harbors?
I believe they can handle the engineering part of it.
Okay, all right.
I have to double check, but I think they've done.
In other words, I don't know if we are able to propose something more specific unless we know
You're right, yeah.
what the dollar amount's going to be. And I think we're all agreed that obviously something needs to be done sooner than later. And again, we're caught between a rock and a hard place right now.
I think Steve indicated he could come back by the next highway meeting.
I can't remember.
He said 60 days.
60 days.
Come back with something on the highway portion.
On the highway portion of it, yeah.
Yeah, the highway portion is the urgent part. I think the harbor situation and the highway, if those sheeting is gone, where the outfall is, that's part of the highway project. It's not part of the harbor project.
Well, for the sake of discussion, I would second Lou's motion. And I tend to agree with Nancy, yeah. That I have serious doubts that with today's, environmental impact, et cetera, that'll be allowed to just whoosh right into the lake. Would a study like that by Steve perhaps include some kind of provision for, retention pond or detention pond, or, a series of rain gardens or something to that effect, which could mitigate the some of the pollutants that are bound to be in that water?
I would think he'd do that.
He did mention that he thought the DNR wasn't going to require that, but
Really?
no, he hasn't followed through on
Yeah.
it 100% yet. Because
Think
we
if-
haven't asked him to do that.
If you had a detention pond there, you'd kiss the whole parking lot at the marina goodbye. Maybe a simpler solution to this would be to ask Harbor, maybe somebody else, just to give us a ballpark idea what they think it would cost. Then we have better, there'd be 3 ideas where we're going. I mean, that's what we're after, is an idea what it's gonna cost, right? So you got one from Bodwin already, and if you ask for Harbor for one or somebody else, then you would certainly have directions of what the whole project would cost.
We need an engineering plan to work off before Harbor will give us an estimate.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Will you read the motion, please?
The motion is to engage an engineer to do a study of the road and the harbor.
An engineer. We didn't specify. Yeah.
You mean a specific engineer? In other words, should I?
Well, I guess,
Well, let's start with Steve.
yeah, we're using Bodwin at this point, so let's make an assumption that's who the first contact goes to.
And if he says it's beyond their scope, then we can go to
Okay.
Plan B.
All right, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
And we're gonna put a monetary limit, how much the engineer is gonna spend?
I'm sorry?
Don't we need to put some sort of a monetary limit on how much the engineer can cost?
We'll get an estimate before he goes ahead.
Yeah. All right, motion carries. Okay, that takes us to number 13, review of town businesses. On a number of occasions, it has been pointed out that Raleigh's Bay Resort is the largest employer in the town, and that kind of piqued my interest a little bit as to knowing who the larger employees are in the town. I think that's important. And I also think it's important to say whether a business employs one person or 100, they are all very important to the town. And I asked Janet, you kind of called around and got some figures, okay. Okay. So everybody knows, okay, and we've got 1, 2, 3. 3 are year-round operations. That would be, well, JJ's, not the waterfront. not Sequus, Yachtworks and Going.
Right.
How about Carlson Erickson Builders?
Did you contact them?
Didn't think of them.
No, okay.
Probably a fairly significant number there.
Well, I wonder,
I would probably put them, I'm gonna make a guess at about 20,
yeah.
but I'm happy to, I can call them, see if they'll respond, but.
There was a little reticence on some of the businesses, what are you gonna do with this? We're just, Janet said, we're just trying to determine how many people are being employed by, different businesses. Okay. That's interesting.
How about some of the smaller ones like Mary Ellen Sisolak and stuff?
Oh, yeah. And they're, that's year-round, and that's an important, aspect of the business climate. I guess I'd really like to be able to see, more year-round businesses in the town, but we're suffering what everybody else is in northern Door County. There is not, there's not the revenue out there to operate year-round.
Never will be, John.
Well, I guess I'm a little more optimistic that probably is not true. I would certainly hope that would not be true. If that is true, then we're gonna have some real problems long-term in the town, at northern Door County. So. Okay. I don't know if anybody wanted to comment on this. Susie?
Yeah, when we got the request from Janet to tell how many employees, we asked what was it for, and we're told that it was because it had come up at meetings, and clearly I'm the one who brings it up at meetings because I have said many times that we are the largest employer, and from these numbers I can tell you without a doubt that Raleigh's Bay Resort is the largest employer. I did get the feeling that you didn't like that I say that, and so, I thought that's really what this was all about.
No.
I didn't see any interest other than that. I know that at the Economic Development Committee level, I know that at one point, one of your members, I think it was the one that doesn't live in Liberty Grove, said, let's look at the businesses that we can get in here. Let's not pay attention to the ones that are already here. Let's try to get new businesses. But let me just tell you the big issue, if you haven't noticed it yet, it's employees. None of us can get enough employees. We could hire another 20 people every single year than we actually have. Getting employees is the problem. If you bring more businesses here, all you're doing is cannibalizing those same group of employees to another business. So you're not growing this area. All you're doing is cannibalizing this small group of employees from one place to another to another. So it's not growing the business. I just want you to know that. And then we will continue to say, because I can see from those numbers, we are by far your largest employer.
I'll make a comment to the board. Years ago, if you were looking for a Dairy Queen franchise to build a Dairy Queen wanted you to get as close to its McDonald's as you could. And the rationale there is that those businesses create more traffic for each other. So, my personal opinion, the more business you have in this community, the more people you have settled in this community, the more likelihood you're going to generate more business. But, I've been at this over 50 years. I don't know much about it, so anyway. Okay, going on to number 14, Board of Review. You've got a number of things here we have to take care of. First one is Resolution 414, and I'll move Resolution 414, designating the hours other than 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for the 2014 Board of Review. The Libertytown Board hereby designates the first session of the 2014 Board of Review, at which objections from property owners are to be heard, is to begin at 1 p.m. on August 20th, 2014. Is there a second?
Second.
August 20th?
Yes.
Said?
All in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
What day of the week is that, just out of curiosity?
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
And then the second resolution is Resolution 514, resolution appointing clerk administrator to the Board of Review, the Liberty Grove Town Board pursuant to statute 70.46, parent 1N, parent B, hereby appoints clerk administrator Walter Combs to the 2014 Board of Review. Is there a
I think we
second?
had some people that wanted to talk.
I'll second that.
Second.
Susie was on that one.
Yeah.
On number 14. I had it.
Are you done talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I guess my question is, since everybody had their taxes increased 2 years ago, is this new thing that, this small group of, people that you're starting with, one of which we are, of course, is that, how did you decide that? Is that just random? How you decided to assess a small group of people now for this next Board of Review?
Associated Appraisals, they're in a 5-year contract with us, and in their contract, they are contracted to maintain a level of assessment. So in order to do that, what they do is they take 20% of all the properties, and they randomly choose 20% every year to look at, and what they're doing is just verifying that the information they have is correct. Because you are picked by them, it does not mean your assessment will go up.
No.
It just means they're verifying all their information is correct, so that they can maintain the level of assessment that we have asked them to maintain.
So you're saying that that is completely, you're blind to whoever they choose?
We have no,
We have
it's
no
them
idea.
picking it, not us.
Okay.
I happen to be chosen as well.
Okay.
So we're in the same boat on that one. Gary, you too? Yeah,
And me.
and Janet.
I say raise everyone selected this year 10%.
Okay,
Did our taxes go up 2 years ago? Our assessment went up, but I thought our taxes,
No,
most
taxes-
of them went down.
Your taxes went down.
Yeah.
Some assessment went up.
Yeah.
Total misunderstanding.
okay, we have a motion and a second on the resolution 514. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, Town of Liberty Grove Ordinance 1-14, appointment of alternative members of the Board of Review. Whereas, and I move, whereas the 1997 Wisconsin Act 237 has amended the procedures for the Board of Review commencing in the year 2000, and whereas one of the changes to Section 70.47 of Wisconsin statutes authorizes the removal of the Board of Review members for individual cases under specific circumstances, and whereas Section 74.47, parent 6M, parent C, authorizes the appointment of alternative members to serve on the Board of Review when standing members are removed from individual cases. Now therefore, the Town Board of the Town of Liberty Grove, Door County, Wisconsin, does ordain as follows. 1, adoption pursuant to Section 70.47, parent 6M, parent C, and Section 70.46, parent 1 of Wisconsin statutes. The Town Board hereby provides for the appointment of alternatives to serve on the Town Board of Review in the event a standing board member of the Board of Review is removed or unable to serve for any reason. 2, appointments. The following electors of the Town of Liberty Grove are hereby named as alternatives in the order indicated to serve as alternate Board of Review members. Alternate 1, Janet Johnson. Alternate 2, Peter Sauer. Alternate 3, Michael Walker. 3, effective date. The appointments made in this ordinance are for the year 2014 Board of Review proceedings and are effective upon posting as provided by law. Adopted at a meeting of the Liberty Grove Town Board on the 4th day of June, 2014. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Discussion?
It was Janet, Peter, and Walker.
Yes. As a former assessor. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Roll call.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Mulligan,
Did you call me? Is that,
yes or no?
yes?
Folkert,
Yes.
Goss,
Aye.
Cavazos.
Yes.
Lowry,
Yes.
carried 5-0.
Operator licenses? Do we have any?
None this time,
None this time.
next time. Big,
No correspondence, I see.
Not this time, next time.
Not this time,
Big
next time.
correspondence.
Big list.
Big list.
Okay,
Future meeting.
Plan Commission, or excuse me, the Library Commission meets Tuesday at 1 PM.
That's the 10th.
On the 10th, on the 11th, the Plan Commission at 7 PM. On the 18th, the Town Board at 7 PM. Airport and Parks at the county. Do you have a time on that, Nancy?
I think
10 a.m.
10 o'clock, yeah?
10 a.m. County Parks at Airport.
IT Committee, the 23rd at 7. Sister Bay Utilities, the 24th at 4 o'clock. Special Town Meeting on the 26th, 7 PM.
Oh, do we have an open book at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the 26th of June?
I got open book on July 26th.
Yeah.
July 26th, my error. Thank you.
11 to 1, Saturday, July 26th.
Okay.
We're not involved in that anyway, it's just people can come in,
Yeah,
right?
it's just that's the assessor.
In case anyone's interested, GODC will meet at 10 o'clock on the 24th.
June,
Mm-hmm,
10 a.m.
mm-hmm.
And looking ahead, the first week in July, Sister Bay Utilities on the 1st at 7 AM, Parks and Property 8 AM, Town Board at 7 PM on Wednesday the 2nd, and the office is closed on Friday, July 4th,
Why?
because there's
Fireworks.
nobody here.
Okay.
That's it.
All right,
Did
before
you
we,
say finance on the 15th of July?
oh yeah, he didn't read down far enough. Finance and.
Finance meeting, 5 PM on the 15th of July.
15.
Yeah,
Yep.
Whoops, 5:15?
no,
No,
5 on the
o'clock
15th.
on the 15th.
5:15, I have a Finance Committee on the 15th.
Okay, before the chair entertains a motion to adjourn, I would like to share with you another quote. And this comes from Tom Petty, who's a musician. If you are a phony, they will fill it in the farthest row of the arena. You have to really care, and you have to make yourself care time and time again. And you know, it applies to more than the musicians. I move we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.